Hello, and welcome to this third lecture in this course, and which is on the chapter three of Kotler's Management, analyzing consumer markets. So, in this section, we are aiming to help you provide the solution to the cases and any questions that are asked in the part two of Kotler's Marketing Management, 14th and 16th edition. And the name of the part two is Understanding the Markets. And at the end of this lecture, particularly, you will be able to recap the concepts taught in the chapter 3 of Kotler, 16th edition, Analyzing Consumer Markets. And at the end, through the assignments, you'll be able to learn the answers to any questions asked in this chapter and also learn the solution to cases given in this chapter. And this will help you either revise Kotler whenever you need to for your exams or for the interview, and also learn by application of the concepts to the cases given there. He starts with the consumer behavior model, overall consumer behavioral model, and basically what he says is that the two kinds of stimuli, that is the market offerings in terms of tactics and the marketing context, basically reach the consumers through a set of things which are what he calls as consumer characteristics and consumer psychology, and these in turn affect the buying decision process and purchase decision. How that happens, we're going to take a look at in this whole lecture a little more closely. So what are consumer characteristics? The consumer's buying behavior is influenced by three kind of characteristics or factors: so cultural, social, and personal factors. So these are the things that a consumer defines differently one from another. Cultural factors exert the deepest influence. Social factors like reference group also have a major influence on the buying behavior of the consumers. Personal factors as well: age, stage in life, occupation, economic circumstances, personality, self concept, lifestyles, and values directly affect the consumer behavior. And how do they affect? We will take a look at as we go forward in this lecture. The cultural factors have a fundamental determinant of the person's wants and behaviors. Culture differs on variety of things like collectivism versus autonomy versus loyalty to the brands, etc. We must, as marketeers, closely attend to the cultural values or to understand the market and make best use of that. Cultures have subcultures, which must be, when they're large enough, we must pay attention to that. And cultures have social classes, which they show their distinct product and brand preferences. Social factors primarily work through reference groups, and these are all the groups affecting the person's belief, their decisions, attitudes, and behaviors. Family is the most influential primary reference group. Parents and siblings shape beliefs, value systems, and behavior right from childhood. Other reference group being friends, neighbors, co-workers, aspirational groups, interest groups, and disassociated groups as well. Must reach and influence superior leaders of these reference groups, and people choose products that reflect and communicate their role and actual happenings of the desired status in society. Personal factors also play a major role. Age affects our tastes in food, clothing, furniture, and recreation. We should consider life's events, critical life events like marriage, graduation, etc., to figure out the needs that are predominant at that point of time and see how we can meet that as marketeer. Identify interested occupational groups and even tailor products for them. We can redesign, reposition, and reprice products based on the economic circumstances, based on where the conditions are. Like specifically in this deflation or recession, we should be able to look at designing products that give much more value compared to normal times. The individual personality can be used by building a brand personality that matches there and that can help in influencing the purchase in your favor. And the lifestyles are predominantly defined by Kotler as either money constraints or time constraint, and accordingly, the products can be used to be designed. The second major element of that model, a consumer behavioral model, is the consumer psychology. And the consumer psychology basically, whenever the marketing and environmental stimuli enter the consumer's consciousness, a set of psychological processes combine with the consumer characteristics that we talked about, which result in the purchase decisions and the decision making process. Our task as marketeer is to understand what happens in consumers' consciousness between the arrival out of the outside marketing input and ultimate purchase decisions. And if we can understand that, we say we understand the consumer. Four key psychological process that shape the consumer decision process: motivation, perception, emotions, and memory. They largely fundamentally influence the consumer response. Let's see how each of these do that quickly. The understanding of the consumer motivation begins with understand the consumer needs, and these are best described by Maslow, as we see in the next slide. So Maslow has described five levels of needs, starting with physiological needs, safety needs, social needs, esteem, and self-actualization. And the fundamental principle that he's outlined is that unless the previous level one, level two, previous level need is fulfilled, the next need will remain latent, and you may do whatever you want as marketer, but you won't get much response from a consumer. So you need to be conscious of what level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs are the target consumers operating, and accordingly design your programs of implementation. The second part of the motivation is that subconscious or unarticulated need must be probed. A good marketeer or a great marketeer basically goes deep into the consumer psychology to unearth the unarticulated or subconscious needs, and then helps it design, communicate, and deliver value to meet those needs. Many times consumers may not know what they need, and we must learn as marketeer how to help them meet. Motivation is a need aroused sufficiently to act, so it's a very key thing. So when you have a late need which is kind of not latent, but if we can motivate it, then the consumer, then it is a sufficiently aroused level of that need that we say is motivated. It has both direction and intensity. A sufficient level of intensity is needed for the consumer to act. Uncovering deeper motives associated with are key to consumer actions, and basically motivation makes consumer ready to act. Perceptions. Let's talk about how does the perceptions act in consumer psychology. First, the perception is the process of how consumers selects, organize, and interprets information. They receive a lot of information. How do they use that to form certain impressions in their mind? And it ultimately affects the consumer behaviors, and that's why we are studying it. It depends on the physical stimuli, the relationship to surrounding environment, and our internal condition. Different perceptions of the same objects can happen due to selectivity of attention, distortion, and retention. So he talks about three things: selectivity of attention, distortion, and retention. So each same object shown to three different people, you might get different interpretation. Will notice stimuli. Consumers will notice stimuli related to the current need. So if you are hungry, you notice food more. When you are anticipating arrival of the food, you will notice it, and whose deviations are very large. If you can smell brilliant food, then you will not remember food more so. Selective distortion interprets information to fit our preconceived notions, preconceptions. So we have preconceptions, and our selective distortion is a process in which our mind interprets the information to fit our current perceptions. Emotions are the mental states that arise spontaneously, so they happen on their own, and hence there are a lot of value in determining behavior. This reflects consumers' positive or negative reaction to a internal or external stimuli. Create different kind of feelings like pride, excited, confident, etc. Increased recognition of the emotional appeal is happening now with the marketer, because they realize they're very important in generating a positive response. Different emotional states influence consumer choices. Is a happy state would generate a more purchase. A sad state might not generate a purchase. Seeing emotions of others can also be used in as a marketing tool. Memory he defines as short versus long term. It's also defined as episodic, semantic, and procedural. Consumer brand knowledge he defines in the brain as a node in the memory, the consumer brand knowledge. It goes and sits as a particular node or nodes. And the brand associations are the brand related thoughts, feeling, and perceptions, images, experiences, beliefs, and attitude linked to this brand node. So there are hundreds of brands, and you would have nodes for each of the brands and the knowledge associated with that. So we can think of marketing as a way to ensure that right brand knowledge stays in your target consumer's memory. Stronger memory association come from more attention, while memory processing or encoding, the process by which the node is formed or the information is added to the node. And consumers may mix brand knowledge, and that's why if they are similar. So hence you need to be distinct in terms of what you are trying to impress consumer on. Let's look at the consumer buying decision process. It's the basic psychological process that we have reviewed. Play as an important role in consumers' actual buying decisions. Some of the key questions that you need to answer are like who buys what products and services, who makes the decisions to buy the products and services, who influences the decision, what does the consumer buy, what needs are being satisfied, what wants are being fulfilled, why does the consumer buy a particular brand, what benefits do they see, where do consumers go or look for the product, online, offline, when do they buy, any seasonality, any time of the day, week, month. How is our product and service perceived by the consumer? What are the consumers' attitude about our products and service? What social factors might influence the purchase decision? Do customers' lifestyles influence the decision? How do personal, demographic, and economic factors influence the purchase decision? So this is what, if we understand this, we say we start understanding the consumer buying decision process. The consumer buying decision process is also what is called a consumer buying decision journey, and this happens in the 5 steps as you see. Starts with problem recognition, information search, evaluation alternatives, purchase decision, and finally a post-purchase behavior. It's not always linear. It could be iterative. It's influenced by new information at each stage. And hence, we must, as marketer, develop activities and program to reach consumers at different stages of touch points through our various touch points to reach the consumer at different stages. The consumer doesn't have to pass through all stages. It may skip or may reverse some of these stages. Good frame of reference for new purchase for new high involvement product. This one is for regular products. There are a lot of modifications, simplification of the process. And there are other processes that we will talk about for which are for other simple buying conditions. Let's look at each of these stages now. Problem recognition. The buying process starts with problem recognition when the consumer recognizes a need triggered by the internal and external stimuli. Let's talk about the food. You recognize that you're hungry because there is internal stimuli coming from your stomach. With the internal stimuli, one of the person's basic need is reaches a certain threshold level, and it becomes a drive. You start feeling motivated to go out and do something. A need can also be aroused by an external stimuli. You may see a friend's new car, and that inspires thoughts about possibility of making a similar purchase. Marketers should identify the circumstances that trigger a particular need by gathering information from the number of consumers. So the research is again critical. What can trigger your need? They can also develop marketing strategies then and and effective advertise that can spark consumer interest and help buy the products. Increasing consumer motivation can be particularly important to encourage serious consideration of discretionary purchases like luxury goods. The drivers behind the consumer recognition needs that are natural depletion of your stock of the things that fulfill the need, like If you have toothpaste at home and it's kind of finishing, then you would see the need to buy toothpaste again. If you are not happy with your current toothpaste, then you may buy again. If there are changes in lifestyle, from a bachelor, you are getting into a dating situation, you might like to buy toothpaste that has nice smell. And the social influences might affect the when you are using a toothpaste and your friend says, "Hey, what toothpaste are you buying?" And you, because you seem to smell, and then he or she suggests you to buy something else. The second stage, once you have a need, the problem recognized, then you start search to fulfill that need. And they it is researched and found that consumers often search for only limited information. Half of the consumers look for only goods, durable goods, in case a research was done, only at one store, where mere 30% look for more than one brand of appliances. There are two levels of engagement in search. The milder search states call for heightened attention. At this level, the person simply becomes more receptive to the information that's on the product. He or she doesn't go out and actively look for, which is the next state in which you actively search for information by reading materials, phoning friends, etc., etc. Marketing must understand the type of information consumer needs, or at least be receptive at different places and times. Then you can make sure that your program contains that information. Major information sources for which consumer turn fall into four groups: personal, like family, friends; commercial, like advertising, etc.; public, such as mass media; experiential, like handling and using the product yourself. The relative amount of information obtained from these sources and the influence vary with the product category and the consumer's characteristics. Having looked at consumer search, let's look at information a little more. Information search, generally speaking, although consumers receive the greatest amount of information about a product from the commercial, that's market dominated sources, most effective information come from personal or experiential sources, or public sources that are independent authorities. Consumers recognize that the the sponsored information has a motive in it. People sharing information about the purchase on Facebook and writing product reviews can also be viewed as independent authority whose opinions carry greater weight. The reviews and comments have become much more influential in generating consumer purchases. Each source perform a different function. Commercial sources normally perform an information function, whereas personal sources inform on legitimate or evaluating function. Many consumers alternate between going online and offline in store to learn about products and brands. Consumers rely on both internal and external information to help them arrive at a decision. Internal information is based on one's own individual experiences. External sources are typically sought for more for high involvement product like car or washing machines, etc. Making by a variety of methods is you see here. The what is the very important piece of the consumer psychology is to understand the search timing in the information search. As the consumer starts searching, he goes through a set of brands, which starts with a total set, which he or she may not be aware. So he then knows what are the brands he or she is aware. That's called awareness set, where then he applies some initial criteria to screen to what he should consider, and that's called a consideration set. And then he starts evaluating them, comes to a choice set, and finally makes a final choice, as you see here. Marketers need to identify the hierarchy of attributes. Very, very useful thing. What attributes guide consumers' decision making in order to understand different competitive forces and how various decisions are formed. The process of identifying is this hierarchy of attributes is what is called market partitioning. Uh, Most buyers years ago decided based on the manufacturer and then one of the car divisions. Today, most buyers decide first on the nation. So the whole consumer dynamics is changing. So the criterias are changing. The hierarchy of attributes can also reveal consumer segment, and they can be a good basis of market segmentation. Buyers who first decide on a price are price dominant, who decide on type of are dominant. Those who choose the brand first are brand dominant. Time, price, brand dominant consumers can make one segment. Quality and service buyers can be another. And each segment will have distinct demographics, psychographic, and behaviors, as well as different awareness, consideration, and choice sets. So this could be extremely useful as a way of segmenting the market. Company must strategize to get a brand into products, prospects awareness, consideration, choice set. So that's very, very important. Search behaviors can vary online, in part because of the manner in which product information is presented. So we need to make sure that the information presented online is in line with the consumer dynamics, search dynamics. Increasingly sophisticated recommendation engines are making uncovering the patterns in consumer choices and recommending most relevant offering to particular consumer needs and start filtering your products. So you must align uh, uh, your product offering and the information in line with what consumer is looking for. Company must also identify the other brands in consumer choice so they can align by appropriate competitive appealing. In addition, marketers should identify the consumer's information sources and evaluate the relative importance. How much does the consumer depend on commercial information versus personal and which commercial? Asking consumers how they learned first about the brand, what information they learned later, and relative importance of these attributes will help company prepare effective communication for the target market. Digital marketing follows for easier detection and analysis of the other factors that send that send potential customers to the company's website. Looked at the information search, the consumers goes through evaluation alternative. Pros and cons of available options are are affected by the consumer's beliefs and attitude, the consumer psychology that we talked about, and these and the way they process information weighs heavily on purchase decision. So, three things: beliefs and attitudes, the information processing, and the model that inside the mind of the consumer determine the outcome of the helps define or evaluate the alternatives and move from one stage to another in the from awareness set to the consideration to the choice set and to make a final. Beliefs and attitudes are primarily acquired through experience and learning. Beliefs are convictions about something being true. Attitudes are enduring favorable evaluations and feelings and behavioral tendencies, preferences. Attitudes make us like or dislike and think. Attitudes are difficult to change because they are formed over a period of time through experiential learning, and we should advise adopting offerings to. We should consider adopting offerings to existing attitudes, not otherwise, because changing attitudes is not easy. Understanding attitudes is important. That they predict consumer behavior during consideration and the choice set. So information processing, how it happens inside the consumer's mind, there's no one single process. There are currently largely conscious and rational models, and one of the models we will see next is expectancy value model. Consumers see each product as a bundle of attributes with which have a varying ability to deliver the desired benefits. Attitudes of interest. Attributes of interest vary by the product categories. We need to pay attention to the attributes that deliver the most sought after benefits. Spend brain power. Consumers spend brain power, time, and effort only in proportion to importance of decision tasks in information processing. And we must know how to reduce the choice overload and make the consumer decision making process easier. One of the model that is widely used in academics is expectancy value model, and which basically says the attitudes are formed by various towards various brand by the attribute evaluation procedure. And one of the model is where attitude is A, and it is a combination by importance and the beliefs about each of the attributes. So if there are 10 attributes, importance of each attribute and a belief about how much does the brand deliver on that attribute forms the disposition, favorable or unfavorable disposition about the brand. It has several implications for the marketer. First, that we can redesign the product on important underperforming attributes. So identify what attributes are underperforming and you redesign your product accordingly. Alternatively, you can alter the consumer's belief about the product by better communication about those underperforming product. You can also change the belief about the importance but that's not easy to do. Uh, Once you have done the evaluation, the consumer comes to the stage of making a purchase decision. In the evaluation stage, the consumer basically forms preferences among the brand in the choice set and may also form an intention to buy the most preferred brand. So you reach only up to the choice stage. You finally need to move forward to a decision stage. In executing a purchase decision, coming to a purchase decision and actually doing from the purchase intention, there may be many things that can affect the purchase decision. The brand, you need to make decisions on distribution, the brand, the quantity, timing, and the payment method. This complex decision complexity often leads consumer to use mental shortcut or heuristics. So, what are decision heuristics? The expectancy value model is a compensatory model. If perceived good in that the perceived good things about the product are overcome by perceived bad things. With non-compensatory model of consumer choice, positive and negative attitudes not necessarily net out. Evaluating attributes in isolation facilitates the decision making for consumer, but it also increases likelihood that the different choices would be different if they were done in a different manner. It's especially true that when people are short on time of recognition or they have short on cognitive resources, they use decision heuristic. One, our brand or product knowledge, the number and similarity of brand choices, time pressure, and social context affect whether and how much of the choice heuristics, decision heuristics we make. Consumers don't necessarily use one type of choice rules. In marketing can influence the decision making through what they call choice architecture, designing the environment in which the consumer decisions are structured and buying decisions are made. Presenting choices in the right environment can give consumers a nudge. You can get the consumers much more favorable in making your decision. There's another model called elaboration likely model, which he talks about in this course. And let's look at that quickly. The expectation value model assumes a high level of consumer involvement, active processing by the consumer in response to marketing stimuli. Uh, the elaboration likely model is an influential model of attitude formation and change. Describe how consumers make evaluation for both high and low tech, low involvement circumstances. So the major difference is the expectancy value model is primarily for high involvement product, whereas elaboration likely model can be used in both. There are two means of persuasion in the model. The central route in which the attitude formation and change stimulates the thought and is based on consumers' diligent, rational consideration of the most important product information. And then second is a peripheral route in which the attitude formation and change promotes much less thought and results from the consumer association of the brand either with positive or negative peripheral cues. Peripheral cues for consumer might include celebrity endorsement, credible source, etc. Consumers follow the central route only if they possess sufficient motivation, ability, and opportunity to evaluate the brand in detail, have necessary brand and product and service knowledge in the memory, and have sufficient time and proper setting. So, setting again is very important. If any of these factors is lacking, consumers will follow a peripheral route. Evidence suggests that the low involvement product that are mostly low cost, frequently purchased product, carry little risk or go through the peripheral route. He continues on to explain which basically this means that it's easy for consumers to switch for categories which are low involvement and they indulge in and impulse purchasing behavior. Marketer can boost habituation of the purchase of these products by stressing quality in product of brand affiliations and by ensuring effective distribution. The consumers are not forced to look anywhere else. Also, he says marketing can use four techniques to convert a low involvement product into that encourages high involvement. First, they can link the product to an engaging issue, uh, uh, something that is burning in the environment. You feel linked to that, it becomes a high involvement product. Second, they can link the product to the personal situation. If it becomes more for you specifically, it can become your specific needs, that it becomes a high involvement. Third, marketer can design advertising to trigger strong emotions, and emotions can make it high involvement. Fourth, they might add an important feature. For example, soft white light bulbs, YGE's introduction of them, and that might make the reposition and change the game to become a high involvement product. These strategies can best raise consumer involvement from low to moderate level. They not necessarily propel the consumer into highly motivated per buying behavior. He goes on to say that if consumers have low involvement with purchase decisions, regardless of the market forces, they are likely to follow the peripheral route. Marketer must give consumers one or more positive cues to justify their brand choice, such as frequent ad repetition, visible sponsorships, vigorous PR to enhance their brand familiarity. Other peripheral cues that can use the balance in your favor include the beloved celebrity endorsement, attractive packaging, and an appealing promotion. Uh, so even if consumers form an evaluation, two factors can intervene between intervention and purchase decisions, and these are situational factors and opinion of others. So that you see between purchase intent and the purchase decision. So intervening factors are the first factor is the attitude of others. So degree we are influenced by others depending on other intensity of other person in our reference groups, and our motivation to comply with other person's wishes. The more intense the other person's attitude and closer he or she is to us, more we are likely to adjust our purchase intention. Related to attitude of others is the role played by the intermediary's evaluation. The second intervening factor involves the situational considerations that may erupt to change the purchase intention. The consumer might lose her job or his job before she purchases a laptop, and that might change the whole decision of making a laptop. From a expensive product, he or she might like to move toward a very low cost product. Preferences, even the purchase intentions, are not completely reliable predictive of the purchase behavior because of these two factors. Consumers' decisions to modify, postpone, and avoid a purchase decision heavily influence one of the type of the perceived risk, different types of perceived risk. These are what is called functional risk, physical risk, financial risk, social risk, psychological risk, and the opportunity risk. The degree of perceived risk varies with the amount of money at stake, the amount of attribute in uncertainty, and level of consumer confidence. Consumers develop routines for reducing the uncertainty and negative consequences of risk by avoiding such as avoiding decisions, gathering information from friends, and developing preferences for the national brands and warranties. Marketers must understand the factors that can provoke the feeling of risk and provide information that supports to reduce the risk. Once you have purchased, you go through what is called a post-purchase behavior, and it's an important implication for marketers. We need to, after the purchase, consumer might feel what is called post-purchase dissatisfaction or dissonance from noticing certain disquieting features or hearing unfavorable things from other brands, and may alter the information that supports his or her decision. Uh, Marketing communication must support beliefs and evaluation that reinforce the consumer's choice and help him feel good about the brand. The marketer's job doesn't end with the purchase, must monitor post-purchase satisfaction, post-purchase actions, and usage and disposal. Satisfaction is a function of closeness between the expectation and actual or perceived performance. If performance falls short of expectation, the consumer is disappointed. If meets expectation, is satisfied, and if it exceeds, the consumer is delighted. These feelings can make a difference to whether the consumer buys the product again or talks favorably or unfavorably to others. The larger the gap between expectation and performance, larger is the dissatisfaction naturally. And that's where the consumer's coping style comes into play. Some cope beautifully by saying the product isn't perfect and highly dissatisfied, while others minimize are less dissatisfied. And again, it depends on the consumer characteristics, the reference groups, the psychology as such. Satisfaction influences the consumer's post-purchase action. A satisfied consumer is most likely to purchase again and also recommend to others. Highest level of success is achieved when the consumer becomes an advocate and recommends companies offering to others. Dissatisfied consumers may abandon the product. They may also take a public route to complaining to the company, going to the lawyer, etc. Private actions may include deciding to stop buying the product or warning friends. Post purchase communication to buyers have been shown to result in fewer product returns and off or the cancellation. So, very important. An important past aspect of post purchase behavior is the marketing should monitor. Uh, this involves use and disposal of the product. A key driver to sales frequency is the product consumption rate. So, if you can monitor the consumption, you can generate more sale. The one strategy to speed replacement is the act of replacing the product at certain holiday events or a year of the time. Another is to offer products on a subscription basis. Another strategy is to provide consumer with better information on what they need to when they need to replace the product to obtain its current level of performance. A simplest way is to increase usage to learn what actual is when actual usage is lower than recommended and persuade consumers about the benefit of regular usage or increase the amount of product usage on each occasion. So having looked at all of these, what do we do next? So as we've been doing, the next you can do is to look at the two cases. One is a Aravind case, second is a PTM case. And these are given in the form of the assignments. So you have the details of the assignment. I would recommend you to do it yourself and then look at the solutions that we have provided, compare, contrast. And if you have any questions, come back to us, any questions, so that you can learn the application of all the various concepts that we talked about. So, thank you so much for watching this third lecture in which we have talked about the concepts of the chapter 3 of Kotler's marketing management. And I hope you are able to recap what is taught in, you will be able to use this information, this summary of concepts when you need to review this chapter for your course or for your interview, and you will be able to make use of this. And I look forward to see you again in the next lecture.